The Prima Materia of the Psyche, Unearthing the Archetypal Mother. Welcome, fellow seekers of truth, to a profound exploration of one of humanity's most fundamental and often perplexing psychological constructs, the mother complex. When we hear these words, often our minds immediately conjure images of dependency, overbearing figures, or unresolved childhood wounds. And yes, Carl Jung, the brilliant architect of analytical psychology, meticulously cataloged these shadows. But to stop there, my friends, would be to miss the sun-drenched peaks for the valleys. Today we journey beyond the conventional understanding, venturing into the luminous and life-affirming aspects of this very complex. We are not here to deny the challenges, but to unearth the hidden gold, to discover how this ancient psychic pattern can be a wellspring of profound strength, creativity, and spiritual awakening.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Let us begin by understanding what Jung truly meant by the archetypal mother. It's not simply about your mother, or my mother, the flesh and blood woman who brought us into the world. While our personal mothers play a crucial role in shaping our individual complexes, the archetypal mother is something far vaster, far more ancient. Jung described her as an existence lauded by all ages and languages. Imagine, if you will, the very first crack in the earth, the agonizing tear as a seed germinates through the soil, the primal, chaotic cry from a newborn's throat as it draws its first breath. This is the raw, untamed essence of the mother archetype. She is the fertile ground, the prima materia of the psyche, the very substance from which all life, all consciousness, and all potential emerge. She is the earth beneath our feet, the rhythm of the seasons, the ebb and flow of the tides, an all-encompassing force that precedes and underpins all individual existence. This archetypal mother is a primordial image, an imprint embedded deep within our collective unconscious. She is simultaneously the warm, nurturing earth that sustains life and the bottomless abyss that threatens to swallow everything. This paradoxical nature is like the very essence of nature itself, the coexistence of spring blossoms and winter barrenness, with the eternal intertwining of the cycles of life and death. We see her in the nurturing warmth of the sun and the devouring power of the storm, in the gentle flow of a river and the crushing force of a tsunami. This archetype transcends mere personal experience and becomes a symbol of the origin of all things within the collective unconscious. She is both Mater Natura, the mother of nature, who nurtures life with her milk, and Mater Spiritualis, the mother of the spirit, who guides the soul's destiny in silence. Think for a moment about this duality. How often do we, in our modern world, seek to compartmentalize, to categorize, to simplify? Yet the mother archetype forces us to confront the inherent paradox of existence. Can you truly embrace life without acknowledging the inevitability of loss? Can you strive for creation without facing the potential for destruction? It is no surprise, then, that this dualistic nature, this inherent tension, both instigates tragic suffering and, simultaneously, forges the very maturity of the individual, and particularly for women. Jung spoke of the hypertrophy of the maternal element, where the feminine energy can, at times, intervene in the stagnant marsh of a marriage almost violently, shattering superficial harmony. This destruction, however, is not pure evil. It is, in fact, a purifying fire bestowed by nature itself. We must understand this not as a moral judgment, but as a recognition of a profound psychological process. Jung, echoing the wisdom of Goethe's Faust, understood that though eternal power often wills evil, it always creates good. When a woman wields the power of eros, that binding, connecting, and relational force, to awaken a man suffocating under the weight of his own undeveloped or misdirected maternal complex, she is, in essence, an emissary of fate. She is a necessary catalyst, bringing chaos back into a new, more authentic order. Consider this: how often do we mistake comfortable stagnation for peace? How often do we cling to what is familiar, even if it stifles our growth, out of fear of the unknown? The archetypal mother, in her destructive aspect, forces us to confront this. She says no more. She demands movement, transformation. Think of the forest fire that clears the old, dead growth, making way for new life to emerge. It is painful, it is devastating in the moment, but it is an essential part of the natural cycle. Similarly, in the individual psyche, this disruptive force, often channeled through the intense emotional energy of a mother complex in its active, challenging form, can be the very crucible in which true consciousness is forged. The essence of this conflict is nothing less than the birth of consciousness. Just as light must penetrate darkness, reason must emerge from the vast reservoir of the unconscious. Jung used the myth of Prometheus as a potent metaphor. Prometheus, the fire-bringer, who stole fire from the gods and brought it to humanity, suffered agonizing torture on the Caucasus Mountains. His liver was devoured daily by an eagle, only to regenerate and be devoured again. This myth speaks to the human condition, to the truth that we must awaken through pain and through the confrontation with our own shadow, with our own sins, not in a moralistic sense, but as deviations from our true path. The fire of Eros is both a destructive flame and a torch of enlightenment. It burns away old dependencies, old illusions, allowing the individual to reshape themselves from the ashes. We shed the skin of what we once were, even if that shedding is painful. Those women who are condemned as destroyers of marriage or troublemakers are, in fact, indispensable catalysts in the process of civilization, in the evolution of consciousness. They compel others to confront the raw realities of life through their very chaos. We often label and judge what we do not understand, especially when it disrupts our carefully constructed worlds. But what if the disruption itself is a necessary step towards something greater? What if the unruly woman, by refusing to conform to stifling expectations, is actually fulfilling an archetypal mandate to break open rigid structures, to introduce the volatile, the dynamic energy of the unconscious into a static, overly rationalized world? They embody the wild, untamed aspect of the mother, the one that demands authenticity and growth, even at the cost of comfortable illusions. This is not to say that every act of disruption is inherently positive, but rather to invite a deeper, more nuanced understanding of the forces at play within the mother complex. It challenges us to look beyond the surface, beyond the initial discomfort, and to ask what is trying to be born here. What old structure is being challenged, not out of malice, but out of an unconscious drive towards greater wholeness. Think about how often we resist change, how we cling to familiar patterns, even when they no longer serve us. The mother complex, in its active, challenging form, can be the very force that shakes us from our slumber. It can manifest as a deep dissatisfaction, a profound longing for something more, a feeling of being suffocated by circumstances. This is the Mater Spiritualis nudging us, sometimes forcefully, towards a deeper truth, towards the path of individuation. It is the wisdom of the body, the intuition of the soul, demanding attention. Have you ever felt that profound, unshakable urge for something to change, even when you couldn't articulate what it was or why? That, my friends, is the ancient voice of the archetypal mother, calling you to greater consciousness, to a fuller expression of your authentic self. It is the push from the unconscious, a reminder that growth is not always comfortable, but it is always necessary. The positive aspect of the mother complex, then, is not about finding an ideal relationship with your personal mother, but about integrating the vast and paradoxical energies of the archetypal mother within your own psyche. It's about understanding that the very forces that can feel overwhelming can also be the source of your deepest power and wisdom. It's about learning to swim in the currents of the unconscious rather than being swept away. Consider the courage it takes to face this archetypal force within oneself. It demands honesty, vulnerability, and a willingness to descend into the depths of one's own being. But it is in these depths, in the embrace of both the nurturing and the devouring aspects of the mother, that we find our true strength, our resilience, and our capacity for profound transformation. We are not meant to avoid the complexities of the mother archetype, but to engage with them, to learn from them, and to ultimately integrate them into a richer and more complete sense of self. The void as Hermeticum, transformation through apparent emptiness. Welcome back, intrepid explorers of the psyche. In our first session, we delved into the vast, paradoxical landscape of the archetypal mother, recognizing her as both the fertile ground of life and the potentially devouring abyss. We touched upon how her disruptive force, often channeled through the mother complex, can be a necessary catalyst for the birth of consciousness. Now, we turn our gaze to a specific, often painful, manifestation of this complex, the experience of those Jung called daughter-type women, those who feel swallowed by the maternal shadow. This is not a judgment, but an observation of a profound psychological state, and it holds within it the seeds of immense positive transformation. For these women, often the most silent victims under the shadow of the maternal archetype, their experience is one of being utterly consumed by the mother's will, becoming what Jung powerfully described as empty vessels. Imagine a life where your own desires, your own voice, your own very essence seems to be a mere echo of another. This isn't just about having an overbearing parent. It's a deep psychic wound where the self feels unformed, porous, constantly seeking to be filled by an external force, often the very maternal energy that has overshadowed it. This feeling of nihilism, this profound sense of internal void, can be devastating. It can manifest as a lack of direction, an inability to make decisions, a constant feeling of inadequacy, or a desperate search for validation from others. However, and this is where Jung's wisdom shines brightest, this very emptiness, this apparent nothingness, is not an endpoint. No, my friends, It is the starting point of transformation. This is a profound mystery, a paradox that challenges our conventional understanding of growth. We are often taught that to grow, we must add something: knowledge, skills, achievements. But here, Jung reveals a path where the very absence, the very void, becomes the fertile ground. He unlocked this secret with a potent metaphor of alchemy. Medieval alchemists, those ancient seekers of transformation, understood the profound significance of the void. They called this empty space, this sealed container, the Vase Hermeticum. Imagine it, a hermetically sealed vessel, perhaps a chalice, with only tiny cracks allowing a sliver of light to penetrate. This vessel, in alchemical terms, was where the raw, chaotic material was placed to undergo its mysterious transformation into gold. For the empty vessel woman, this internal void is her Vase Hermeticum. It is a sacred, enclosed space, perhaps initially filled with pain and unexpressed potential, but it is precisely because it is empty that it can be filled anew. When such women are, as Jung described, filled by the irradiation of the male anima, a profound shift occurs. Let us be clear, this isn't about finding a literal man to fill them. Jung's concept of the anima refers to the unconscious feminine aspect in a man, and for a woman, the animus is the unconscious masculine aspect. Here, Jung is speaking about the internal integration of masculine principles, clarity, direction, assertiveness, rational discernment, which can infuse this empty vessel with a new sense of structure and purpose. The anima, in this context for the woman, refers to the receptive, containing principle of the psyche itself, which is now ready to receive a different kind of impulse. It's about an internal fertilization, a bringing forth of her own unique identity. When this happens, they are no longer mere echoes of the mother. They become like resounding bell towers. Think of a bell tower. It is a structure, a form, but its purpose is to resonate, to produce sound, to make its presence known. The sound is not inherent in the tower itself, but emerges from within it, vibrating outward. Similarly, these women, once empty, now resonate with their own unique voice, their own inherent qualities. They become distinct, individual, no longer defined solely by the maternal shadow. Jung drew another evocative parallel to the cicada in the tale of Genji. The cicada, after being possessed, meaning undergoing an internal, transformative process, sheds its outer shell, revealing a pearl-like core. This is a powerful image of individuation, the process by which a person becomes a unique, undivided whole. The shell is the old, borrowed identity, the echo of the mother, the feeling of emptiness. The pearl is the authentic self, revealed only after the painful but necessary shedding. It is pure, luminous, and distinct. Such women are often pushed to the very extremes by fate. They may find themselves either becoming a shadow behind a great man, losing themselves in his brilliance, or, conversely, exploding in complete denial, rejecting all forms of connection or commitment. This is the pendulum swinging wildly, a desperate attempt to find a balance that has been profoundly skewed. But it is precisely this extreme passivity, or this extreme reactivity, that paradoxically generates unexpected active strength. The very intensity of their unresolved mother complex, pushing them to these edges, forces a confrontation. They are like Pandora from Greek mythology. After the calamities from her box dispersed into the world, hope remained at the bottom. The initial release of chaos and suffering was not the end. It was the prelude to the possibility of something new. Similarly, for these women, the overwhelming feeling of emptiness or the radical rejection of their inherited patterns, while painful, is not the final state. It is within that apparent desolation, at the very bottom of the box, of their psyche, that hope, and with it, their own authentic power, lies hidden. The crucial turning point arrives when a woman realizes that her nothingness, her apparent emptiness, is in fact a capacity to receive everything. This is a profound shift in perspective. The void is no longer a deficit, but a vast potentiality. If you are an empty vessel, you can be filled with anything. If you are nothing, you can become everything. This transformation demands a kind of theft, a forceful removal from the protective but stifling embrace of the maternal. Jung again turns to myth. Persephone, stolen by Hades and dragged into the underworld, had to be torn from her mother Demeter's arms. She was forced to learn to breathe on her own in the darkness of a strange land. This myth is not about a literal kidnapping. It's a metaphor for the necessary psychic separation from the unconscious, all-encompassing bond with the mother archetype. It's about a woman, or anyone deeply entangled in the empty vessel, aspect of the mother complex, being forced to descend into their own shadow, into their own personal underworld. This descent is painful, disorienting, and often feels like a death. But it is in this darkness, in this forced self-reliance, that true autonomy is born. Persephone, by enduring her time in the underworld, becomes the queen of that realm, gaining a unique wisdom and authority. She integrates the dark, chthonic aspects of existence, returning to the light transformed, bringing with her the wisdom of the depths. This process involves actively reclaiming projections, understanding that the need to be filled by others often stems from an unconscious longing to fill the internal void. It means engaging with one's own internal resources, however nascent they may feel. It means learning to trust one's own impulses, one's own intuition, rather than constantly seeking external validation. It is the journey from being a passive recipient of fate to becoming an active participant in one's own destiny. This is the profound, positive aspect of facing the mother complex. It forces a confrontation with the unlived life, with the unexpressed self, and provides the ultimate impetus for authentic self-creation. Consider your own life. Have you ever felt that profound emptiness, that sense of waiting to be filled, or perhaps that desperate need to be seen and validated by others? What if, in those moments, you were standing at the threshold of your own vase Hermeticum, ready for a profound internal alchemy? What if the very yearning for completion was a signal that your unique pearl, your authentic self, was ready to emerge? The journey from empty vessel to resounding bell tower is arduous, but it is ultimately the path of true liberation. It is the embrace of one's own innate capacity for wholeness, the recognition that true fulfillment comes not from external sources, but from the integration of all aspects of the self, including the profound potential hidden within the apparent void. The crystallized truth, wisdom through resistance and integration. Welcome back, fellow travelers on this intricate path of self-discovery. We've journeyed from the vast, paradoxical realm of the archetypal mother and explored the transformative potential hidden within the empty vessel. Now let us turn our attention to another powerful, yet often misunderstood, manifestation of the mother complex. Those individuals, particularly women, who exhibit a negative attitude towards the mother. This isn't simply a personal dislike, it is a deep archetypal resistance, a psychic stance born from the very forces of nature, which ultimately leads to a unique and profound form of wisdom. These individuals often use reason and logic as an impenetrable shield, perpetually battling against the perceived chaos and ambiguity of the maternal. They despise anything vague, emotional, or illogical, striving instead to control their lives through clear-cut distinctions, strict definitions, and absolute boundaries. On the surface, this attitude might appear rigid, even cold or detached. It might seem like a rejection of the very feminine principles of flow, intuition, and interconnectedness. But in Jungian terms, this is actually another profound form of redemption, a different path to wholeness. Jung vividly compared such women to Lot's wife looking back at Sodom. Remember the biblical story. Lot and his family were fleeing the doomed city of Sodom, warned not to look back. Lot's wife, unable to resist, turned and was transformed into a pillar of salt. In this powerful metaphor, Jung suggests that these individuals, in their intense aversion to the Sodom of undifferentiated maternal chaos, have turned their backs on that world. Yet even in their rigid, crystallized state, like the pillar of salt, they still contain a glimpse of a profound truth. Their very resistance, their fixed gaze backward, paradoxically holds the essence of what they reject, but in a solidified, perhaps unintegrated form. When they finally, inevitably, turn back and confront the reality they've been resisting, their previous opposition doesn't just dissolve. It transforms into deep insight and profound understanding. The very act of fighting against the unconscious maternal forces has, unknowingly, shaped them, sharpened their intellect, and forged their capacity for discernment. They have built their world with the masculine principle of reason and structure, creating a formidable internal architecture. However, it is typically in midlife, often around their 40s, that they reclaim the maternal principle of tolerance, inclusivity, and boundless acceptance. This is when the pillar of salt begins to melt, not into formlessness, but into the living waters of wisdom. This profound contradiction, the warrior who becomes a healer, the embodiment of logic who embraces intuition, creates a unique form of wholeness. They are simultaneously the sharp-witted analyst and the deeply empathetic presence. Their existence proves that the highest form of consciousness is not a rejection of the maternal, but an embrace of both light and shadow, reason and emotion, structure and flow, right within oneself. They don't just understand paradox, they embody it. They become living proof that true wisdom lies not in choosing one extreme, but in integrating the seemingly opposing forces of life into a dynamic, harmonious whole. Their journey demonstrates that the fight itself, the very struggle against the unintegrated aspects of the mother complex, can be the furnace in which a higher form of consciousness is forged. It is a testament to the idea that even our deepest resistances hold the seeds of our greatest growth. The positive aspects of the mother complex always revolve around a core paradox. It is only by diving deep into the shadow that one can touch the light. Only by embracing the potentially devouring power of the maternal that one can truly transcend its binding limitations. Jung likened this process to a journey with Hecate, under the guidance of the underworld goddess. But one must navigate the wilderness of the unconscious and confront one's deepest fears. The essence of this adventure is the union of opposites. The maternal both gives birth to life and buries death. Reason builds order, yet also creates chains. When an individual, particularly a woman, finds this crucial balance within this intricate labyrinth, she becomes a complete human being. She is no longer merely a copy of her mother or a vassal to patriarchal structures, but a truly independent third entity. A unique expression of integrated wholeness. This completeness is like Dante's Beatrice, simultaneously a guiding star and an echo of the abyss. It reminds us that abundant life always emerges at the intersection of light and shadow, where the profound and often challenging forces of the mother complex are not feared or denied, but embraced, understood, and ultimately integrated into the richness of the individuated self.